and somehow, some way, Denzel Boston slides all the way to pick 39, and it's an absolute steal for the Cleveland Browns fans.
The Cleveland Browns didn't just have a good draft, they may have pulled off highway robbery in front of the entire NFL. And the new intel coming out makes it look even crazier. Because when you hear that the Browns were sweating out pick 39, thinking about trading back into the first round, then thinking about moving up early in the second, and still somehow landing Denzel Boston without giving up the extra assets, that is not just good drafting. That is the board falling perfectly for a team that actually knew what it was doing. The Browns came into this draft needing help in the most obvious places. They needed offensive tackle, they needed wide receiver, they needed more juice around the quarterback, they needed depth, size, speed, and players who could actually make the offense easier instead of forcing the quarterback to be Superman every week. And somehow, Andrew Berry walked out of the first 2 rounds with Spencer Fano, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, and Emanuel McNeil-Warren. If somebody put that in a mock draft before the draft, Browns fans would have laughed and said, be realistic. But it actually happened.
The Browns then drafted 2 round 1 talent wide receivers, Casey Concepcion, and then they stole Denzel Boston at 39, who could have been the pick at 24 as well. So 2 wide receivers that I guarantee make the roster, I guarantee have an impact, and now all of a sudden that room's pretty crowded. Judy goes from being the 1 to, what, the 2, the 3? I don't know. And Cleveland has 13 wide receivers on the depth chart.
This is where it gets dangerous, because Jeremy Fowler basically confirmed that Cleveland did not just casually wait on Denzel Boston. They really liked him. They considered jumping back into the first round, with Seattle at 32 being a possible spot. Then they thought about moving up again in the early second. That tells you everything. Boston was not some random fallback pick. He was a target. The Browns wanted him badly, and somehow, instead of paying extra to get him, they sat tight and watched him slide all the way to 39. That is highway robbery. A nearly 6'4" receiver with size, speed, contested catchability, and a massive catch radius falling into your lap after you already landed Casey Concepcion? That is the kind of draft luck that only works if your front office stays patient. And that patience matters, because young teams usually make a mistake right here. They panic. They trade up too early. They burn future picks because they are scared. But Berry waited. He let the defensive run happen. He trusted the board, and the Browns still got their guy. And Denzel Boston is exactly the kind of receiver this offense needed. He may still need to sharpen the route running, but you cannot teach his frame, his hands, or the way he can win when the ball is in the air. For a young quarterback, that is a dream. You do not always need the perfect throw. Sometimes you just need to put it in his area and let your receiver make you right. That matters for Shedeur Sanders. That matters for Deshaun Watson. That matters for whoever ends up taking snaps in this offense.
And they're also very complementary skill sets between Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion. Casey Concepcion is your movable vertical threat. Boston is your outside possession guy. And what Boston has that KC doesn't have is hands. This guy had a 3.6% career drop rate, amazing ball skills, especially in contested situations.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. Boston makes even more sense because of Casey Concepcion. Those two complement each other perfectly. Concepcion is the electric space player. Get the ball to him quickly and let him create after the catch. Motion him, use him on screens, let him separate underneath, let him stress linebackers in nickel corners. Boston is the outside body, the red zone option, the guy who can win one-on-one when the field gets tight. One gives you speed and movement, the other gives you size and catch radius. That is not random, that is roster construction. And Fowler also said Casey Concepcion was not going to last long after pick 24. That is huge, because some fans may have wondered if Cleveland reached or if they could have waited. But apparently, no. Concepcion was a hot name, and teams like the Patriots were thought to be very high on him. So, Cleveland did not just take him because they liked him, they took him because they knew if they waited, he was probably gone. That is how you read a draft board. That is how you avoid getting cute and losing your player. This is where it gets dangerous for the rest of the AFC North, because the Browns didn't just get one receiver, they got two of the top wideouts in the draft, while still getting their offensive tackle first. Think about that. Order. They handled the premium trench need, then still came back and doubled up at receiver. That is almost perfect, because if they had gone receiver first, maybe they missed the tackle. If they waited on Concepcion, maybe he's gone. If they trade up too aggressively for Boston, maybe they lose assets. Instead, they threaded the needle.
Says, I don't know if I've ever had more of a promising feeling coming off an NFL draft than I do right now in this moment about the Cleveland Browns. They're actually heading in the right direction.
And when Todd McShay says he does not know if he has ever had a more promising feeling after a Browns draft, that tells you the vibe is shifted. This is not just Browns fans hyping themselves up. National analysts are seeing the same thing. The Browns are actually heading in the right direction. And yes, last year's win total did not match the post-draft excitement, but the foundation is different now. You can see young pieces on both sides of the ball. You can see the plan forming. The Jacksonville trade looks better and better every time you revisit it. At first, fans were upset because Cleveland moved away from the chance to take Travis Hunter. And honestly, that reaction made sense in the moment. Travis was the big shiny name, the kind of player fans dream about. But here's the part nobody is talking about. The Browns turned that move into Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson, and now Casey Concepcion. That is not a small return. That is a full package of players who can impact the team in different ways. This is where young front offices usually make a mistake. They fall in love with one star and forget they need a team. The Browns needed more than one player. They needed bodies. They needed starters. They needed offensive identity. They needed defensive depth. They needed a running game. They needed receivers. So instead of taking one player and calling it a day, they turned that value into multiple shots. And if even 3 of those players become real contributors, Cleveland wins that deal.
Well, I see a guy that's a playmaker. I mean, this dude does a really good job of getting the football back. If you watch some of his clips, he understands peanut punching, which is when you punch the ball out. So he's forced a lot of fumbles. He's got interceptions where he's been in the middle of the field from the post. He's done it. He's played half man, got it. He gets the big hits on big plays.
Now add Emanuel McNeil-Warren into the conversation, and this draft starts looking almost unfair. ESPN analysts were calling him one of the best value picks in the entire draft. Jordan Reed pointed out that McNeil-Warren falling to the 2nd round was one of the major surprises of the whole weekend. In a lot of mock drafts, he was going late teens or early 20s, but because of an average combine and the yearly slide that safeties deal with, he kept falling, and Cleveland grabbed him. That is exactly what best player available is supposed to look like. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Safety may not have been the screaming need for Cleveland right now, but good teams do not wait until a position is empty before they address it. They draft ahead. They add talent before the emergency hits. McNeil-Warren gives them flexibility, size, and playmaking. And if he played in the SEC, most people believe he would have been a first-round conversation. Cleveland got that player in round 2. That is not luck. That is process. Then there's Spencer Fano and Austin Barber. Mel Kiper was right to praise that part of the draft because you can never have too much tackle depth, especially not in today's NFL, especially not for the Browns, who needed offensive line help badly. Fano gives them a potential cornerstone up front. Barber gives them another developmental piece with versatility. And here's the biggest win of this entire draft. The quarterback does not have to be the hero every single snap anymore. Concepcion can create after the catch. Denzel Boston can win contested balls. Quinshon Judkins can carry the run game. Harold Fannin Jr. can be a reception machine at tight end. The offensive line should be better. That is how you protect a quarterback mentally too. You do not put everything on his shoulders. You give him answers. You give him spacing. You give him easy throws. You give him a run game. And then you let him grow inside structure. That is what Cleveland seems to be doing now, and it's a massive shift from the old chaos. Todd Monken's presence makes this draft feel even more valuable because these are not just players being dropped into a stale offense. Concepcion is perfect for motion and RPO concepts. Boston gives him size on the outside. Judkins gives him physicality in the run game. Fano and Barber give him protection up front. Suddenly, the Browns have pieces that actually fit a modern, creative offense, and that's why the mood around Cleveland feels genuinely different right now. Because when you look at the first 4 picks, Fano, Concepcion, Boston, McNeil-Warren, it almost feels fake. That sounds like a dream mock draft from a fan who turned the trade settings off, but it happened in real life, and the intel makes it even better. We now know Cleveland almost had to pay more for Boston. Concepcion had real suitors lined up right behind them. The Browns were not just lucky, they were disciplined enough to take advantage of the luck when it showed up. This draft also puts real pressure on the quarterback room. There are fewer excuses now. If Shedeur gets the chance, he has weapons and protection. If Watson plays, he has genuine support around him. If the offense still struggles badly, people are not going to blame a lack of help the same way they used to. That's what a good draft does. It raises the floor of the roster, but it also raises the expectations that come with it. And that's the legacy angle for Andrew Berry. If this class hits, he completely changes the conversation about himself. Back-to-back strong drafts can rebuild a reputation fast. The Browns are no longer just trying to survive one season at a time. They're stacking young talent. They're building something that actually looks real. If this works, we may look back at this draft as the moment the Browns stopped being desperate and started being dangerous. And if Shedeur Sanders or whoever wins the quarterback job takes a leap because of this support system, the rest of the NFL is going to regret letting these players fall into Cleveland's hands, because right now, it doesn't just look like a good draft, it looks like highway robbery.